Cannibalism. Could you eat a whole human being? With the help of a doctor, a scientist and a chef, I set out to see if it's possible. Cannibalism. Part 9. Hair. Whether you're blessed with a bouffant, or as bald as a coot, you won't be shocked to hear that hair isn't the kind of tasty treat that even the most famished of cannibals would consider chowing down on. 2016. Blake Liebel, the director of a horror film unironically called Bald, beat and tortured his girlfriend Lana Casey in over 6 hours. He drained her body of blood, dismembered her, scattered her limbs, and with a razor blade, he scalped the long dark hair from her head, as well as half of her face and her right ear. Scalping, like skinning, has long been symbolic of domination as far back as 5,000 years BC. For the ancient Greeks, hair had long signified a person's status, rank and tribe, as well as their breeding, wealth and intelligence. But as wars ravaged the world, seeking to humiliate our foes, whereas once body parts like the heads were taken to be paraded as war trophies, the skulls were scalped solely to make them easier to carry. For a cannibal, the scalp is nothing but a souvenir or a byproduct, as even when they are tucking into a face, a bicep or a thigh, the last thing they want to be munching on is a mouthful of hair. Therefore, it won't be surprising to hear that we've got no dietary guidelines by the NHS on hair consumption, or any data on its calorific value by Paleolithic-era cannibals. As rightly, when it's on meat, they would have either skinned it or burnt it off. Hair is a remnant of our long-forgotten past, when as hunter-gatherers, our fur kept us warm. Made of layers of hardened protein called keratin, most people have between 100 to 150,000 terminal hairs on their head and 50 million shorter vellus hairs over their body, with each follicle able to last up to 7 years, as they each have their own muscle, nerve and blood supply. And although hair seems to continue growing, once the follicle is visible, it's dead, along with our nails, most of our skin cells and parts of our teeth. Canadian serial killer Bruce McArthur kept photographs of his victims' deaths and how he humiliated their corpses. In a motive known only to him, he posed their bodies wearing a fur coat, a black leather hat, smoking a cigar, and symbolically he shaved their heads and beards, keeping the hair in Ziploc bags. Oddly, although he wasn't a cannibal, it was actually an alarming post by a fantasist going under the alias of Chefmate50 on the cannibal fantasy forum Zambian Meat, which led to MacArthur's arrest. So why don't we eat hair? We don't, because we can't digest it. Even in our stomachs, which contain 1.5 litres of gastric juice, and being made of a lethal mix of hydrochloric acid, potassium chloride and sodium chloride, even though it can dissolve metals, it can't dissolve keratin. And with our acid averaging 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, keratin doesn't break down until 230 degrees Celsius. If we swallow an occasional hair, it wouldn't do us any harm, as it will pass harmlessly out of the gut. But anything more can cause tragabezos, also known as hairballs, which can become lodged in the gastrointestinal tract, resulting in vomiting, anemia, obstruction, bowel perforation, and even death. As scavengers covered in fur, cats and dogs have evolved to cope with hairballs. And with the pH level of their stomachs swinging from 7.3, which is neutral, to 1.5, similar to battery acid, although still toxic, they can cope. Whereas being almost hairless humans, coughing up a hairball is a skill we have lost. That said, hair is also a haven for bacteria, fungi and yeast. as well as a wealth of hazardous chemicals which on a daily basis many of our scalps are subjected to, such as peroxide, sulfates, parabens and formaldehyde. So it seems that, unless a serial killer with cannibal tendencies has developed the skill to hack up a furball, it's unlikely they'll have a penchant for eating human hair. Most victims' hair is scalped, binned, or kept as a souvenir. But given that its DNA can last for centuries in the right conditions, if cooked at above 230 degrees Celsius in an oven, hair becomes as brittle as powder, and most of its DNA will be destroyed. Hair can be deadly, but without you knowing it, you may be ingesting it daily. L-cysteine is an amino acid used in the mass production of bread, often made of duck feathers to give your loaf a soft and bouncy texture for longer. According to the Health Freedom Alliance, having first been dissolved in acid, most of it is extracted from a cheap and abundant natural protein source, human hair. So think about that the next time you tuck into a sliced white, a pizza, a tortilla, or even a cake. Join me tomorrow for the vampire's source of energy, blood.